got it. I got it.
Oh, okay.
But first, we got some business to do.
So we're supposed to be sitting.
Yeah,
Can we get
yeah.
off the stage?
Yeah,
Or do we
yeah.
have to sit down?
No, no. Why don't you sit? Stacy is busy, but she'll tell us what. She'll read the notes.
Are you recording from your group?
Actually, I guess I am.
Let me ask her. Do you want me to record?
Okay, good. Good. I'll do it. Yeah, I can do that. So, is everybody here? That's the main thing. Okay, so. Yeah, come. Yeah. This isn't class. Sit closer. Come on. Intimacy. Physical intimacy. Julie.
She's in her spot.
She's tired. Okay, come on. Let's get.
Come closer.
Huh?
Jim's not gonna bite.
I think they're afraid of his boa.
Okay.
When you get up, I suppose you'll see flashes and lights and stuff like that. See if anybody sees us. Okay.
This is the microphone we need to use. So
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
either we unravel it.
Okay. To bring it here, you mean?
Yeah, we can do that.
We'll check though. Nick, we can unravel it and take it around.
Okay,
Yes.
well, first I'm going to do one thing. Well, I've got one bit of business to do first, and that's to announce the winner of the raffle for serving lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and questioning teens, and it is won by Brian Leaf. So, yo! No, when I'm on stage, nobody has to hug me. You know, I mean, thank God. And let's see. So I guess the way to do this is to just do it by groups. And what we're going to try to do is summarize what the findings were for each group. And so for the first group, we had Nancy and Mario. Who wants to report from Nancy and Mario? Aha, you're the reporters. Oh, come right on up. Come right on up. You take, take the mic, and you can. We've got someone taking notes, so we will, for our action agenda, because this is what we're gonna. You can do this. It's really okay. It's not gonna bite you.
Or they can sit
And you
if they
can
want.
sit down if you want to. You can unravel it. It's amazing. It's been just too long, hasn't it, since we won the Academy Award? God knows it. Too many years. Come on over here. Have a seat. Make yourself at home. Yo! There you are.
Okay.
And this is from the red group.
Some of the major themes that we talked about were educating staff and librarians themselves to be more comfortable talking about LGBT issues and two different groups of patrons. We suggested more. There was talk of having a diversity class, but then we also talked about incorporating those subjects into all of the curriculum, kind of integrating it into everything. So if you were taking a reference or a collection class, having there be a time to discuss, and this is how we can serve these groups of patrons, this is how we can make sure that we're serving all of our patrons. And it was also discussed that there needs to be a sort of multicultural competencies, some sort of training, just to make sure that we know how to speak respectfully to all of our patrons, different age groups, different social backgrounds, and make sure that we're not unintentionally offending or alienating people.
We talked about the idea of having mandatory safe zone training in library school and how we thought that would be a good idea because most people in library school are going to go serve the public or community in some way, and it just would be a good idea. Yeah, I guess a lot of our focus in our group was about talking about the LIS program training and the things we could do. So having the library school itself place an emphasis in its mission and in its coursework on these issues, and not being afraid to take a stance and say you're going to have gay patrons and you are going to serve them, and really say it outright and not just sort of imply it, to really say this is how you do it and it will be done. I think that for me personally, going into every class at the beginning of the semester, if somebody said to be a librarian, you have to be open-minded and tolerant. And if I kept hearing that over and over and over, and it was really pushed by my, by my program at my school, I think it would mean a lot more than just sort of the general hazy idea that you're going to be in a service profession.
And we talked about the need in the workplace to make sure that these issues are in people's minds, to talk to our other staff members and keep those communications open, to talk to the HR people, and to know that if they are not one of the things that came up that I found really interesting was that if you're not making a comfortable workplace for everyone to work, then you are going to lose out on who might be the best qualified staff member for your organization, because they want to go someplace where they can have benefits for their partner or can feel like they are in a place that's supportive of them, and they're not going to come to your library. And what resources are you denying yourself in your community by not having that supportive space?
We talked about being able to have the skills to handle a situation that's uncomfortable in a library. If there's a confrontation, if there's a challenge, you can't have an argument unless you're informed. So to be able to know these things, to be equipped to handle any situation, just be knowledgeable. You have to know things, and you have to know the resources. If you don't collect the resources, if you don't know the resources, how are you possibly going to provide access to information? So it just isn't a question anymore. Like, you have to know these things, you have to be aware, and you can't hide from it.
And while we did say that it was important that all of the staff have at least the ability to be comfortable talking about it and have a basic understanding of what the issues might be and how to talk to patrons that might need them, that it was also good to use the resources you have on your staff. If you have a staff member who is particularly comfortable with these issues or particularly well educated, then have them head the diversity committee. We talked about the idea of setting up a diversity liaison, whether that's an official title or if it's just someone you've identified in your organization that patrons and other staff members can come to when they don't know how to handle a situation, when they do have questions about how to best help someone. Just having that resource. If you have someone that has a skill, any skill, you should be using it.
We talked about bridging the disconnect if there's an LGBTQIA person in the workplace, or patrons, or anyone who's in that community, in that environment, in your library, wherever you're working. If for some reason there's a disconnect between people, communication isn't happening, someone's feeling like they aren't getting the services they need, they aren't getting the treatment they deserve in the workplace, they aren't, for some reason they're feeling alienated or whatever, that we can't be afraid to acknowledge that disconnect is there, because until you acknowledge it, you can't fix it. So you need to say, okay, it's there. Why is it there? What can we do to fix it? Fix it.
In the workplace, we talked about making sure that we reach out to other local organizations in the community and having them come and help us design programs, run programs in our spaces, help us set up book displays. And we talked about doing these things not only during particular times like Pride Week or Coming Out Day or whatever the other, but incorporating them into other things we're doing. Like if it's Poetry Month, then have part of that display be a notable LGBT poet, or just making sure that is a part of everything and not just set into this one little corner or time.
And one of the other things that was important, I think, that we talked about in terms of LIS programs is not just to kind of like learn about what multiculturalism is and diversity, but also maybe to learn the practical skills to be able to know what to do about ethics in libraries, because it's a really sensitive issue. You know, if somebody comes to you with an information need and it's clearly based in homophobia or something else that makes you uncomfortable for any reason, you have to know how to provide library service that's judgment-free, but also to know when it's okay to have your own personal boundaries and strategies for handling a situation like that, because, it isn't always just, I can't believe you're such a bigot, go away. Sometimes it's, I might not be the best person to help you right now, but let me find somebody who could, and to find somebody who isn't going to get as heated about, the topic, or just to know when, if you are the only person who can help and not someone with the information need, to be able to look and say, what is my profession? What am I here to do? At the end of the day, I'm a librarian. So I think that actually having a conversation about that in library school is important, because I go to Chapel Hill. I don't think I've gotten that personally, skills for handling a situation like that. So
The folks that work in or are planning to work in school libraries mentioned delineating or looking at the difference between the role of a teacher and the role of a librarian, and looking at the role of a librarian more as providing access. And I don't know a whole lot about school libraries, but they said that was a really important aspect of it.
it is, yeah. Okay, I don't know anything else to say.
I'm good.
And does anyone else from our group think we need to add anything important that was said?
Yeah, did we miss anything?
Just one clarification. With the safe zone training, it's not that we would make it mandatory, but we would offer it and let people choose. Because if you make it mandatory, then there's a danger of people just doing it but not really committing to it, or
Well, in that case, if we're going to offer it, then we need to make it very obvious that it's being offered, because today was when I learned that we offered it. And I'm going to go do it. But
Yeah.
I hadn't heard about it until then, so just making sure that we're promoting it and making sure everyone's aware of it.
if I could just add, I did, after I did my safe zone training, I actually did a program at the American Library Association conference informing librarians at a national level about this program.
So yeah, part of that is professional development too. Like, there needs to be more than just one session at ALA sometimes about this stuff. Conferences like this, taking what we learn here, spreading the word, like Mario said, if safe zone, like spreading the word about that, getting it out to your classmates, your colleagues, your peers, whoever you're with, all that kind of professional development stuff, it just doesn't happen enough.
No, I don't need.
Oh, you
No,
don't
I
need
don't.
it?
I was going to say pass it to
Okay.
Letitia. And we'll
Oh,
just
well, there we
keep right
go.
on going.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, well, I don't have neat little notes, so I'm just gonna. Yeah, I have twister notes, so I'm gonna stand here, and I think the easiest way would be to go through the topics on here. So, under real world, we talked about engaging colleagues, although when we started talking about engaging colleagues, we found that maybe some of the issue wasn't so much with the colleagues, but with speaking with students. And this was in a school library. But some of the things that we put under there were differing beliefs are tolerated, disrespect is not tolerated. So getting rid of wrong information between everyone, not just colleagues, but colleagues and students and patrons and customers or whatever you call them. Another question that was asked, the first question that we asked was the one about what can we do to engage colleagues. So another sort of devil's advocate thing that we did talk about was, should we even try to engage colleagues? Is that something that we have to do? Or are we trying to change people's minds? Or are we accepting their diversity of thought as well? Because maybe their minds are just never going to be changed, and that's okay too, if we accept diversity. But we did talk about making sure that people had history and information and that we were just open, being an active listener. And sometimes if you don't say something at the right time, your silence is consent. So knowing when to speak up and where to speak up and how to speak up is very important. So maybe there are subtle ways to introduce tolerance to your staff. We talked about honesty in ourselves and in who we are in the workplace, and making ourselves available to be someone that is open and available for talking to, regardless of what it's about, because we are personally open with who we are. And we talked about combat the fear of the unknown. We talked about corralling civility. I like that phrase, so I wrote it down. That in general, if it becomes completely unacceptable to use gay as a pejorative term or to use any sort of slurs, if it becomes so unacceptable that even peers tell other peers, what are you doing? You can't say that. That sort of thing, to create a pervasive atmosphere of acceptance, and that the language that you use needs to be considered and monitored, and not just a throwaway word, but to really think about what you're saying and think about whether or not it's acceptable. And that's about anything: religion, race, class, anything. Everyone should ally everyone. That was another thing that we were mentioning. It shouldn't just be one thing. You were talking about having things be like inclusive, and so that was a big thing that we talked about, was inclusiveness. We also mentioned displays and that sort of thing that were inclusive, that had an element of LGBTQIA, but other things as well, race and ethnicity and sexuality. And we mentioned safe zone type things, but there was one devil's advocate point of view that was, if you see those sorts of signs there or whatever, does it imply that other areas are somehow less safe, unsafe? Would that make you less comfortable to talk to someone if they didn't necessarily have a safe zone sign up or that kind of thing? So we did kind of question that, not to say that it's not a good idea, but just to throw that question out there. We talked about how kids at school are bringing home their parents' ideas and beliefs, so it may be a little bit harder to change, a child's belief if they're learning to bully at home, and then they bring it to the school. I'm just going to actually walk on my paper. So, when we talked about some information issues, there was an anecdote. Someone was talking about how someone came in and couldn't find the collection, but it was actually there. They were very angry, but that there was no collection on LGBTQI issues, but they actually was. So we need to make sure that collections are sometimes spotlighted in displays or exhibits, but there was a concern that if people want to look at this information, they want to view it in private, then if they see it on a display, the idea of a display is to put the books out and someone check out the book, realize the book is there and check it out. But if they don't feel comfortable doing that, is a display still a good idea? And it was said that it is still a good idea because it highlights the collection. They might not check out the book at that time, but they might write down the title and check it out later, or they just know that they're there. So it's still a good idea, but we also mentioned adding stuff to the library website, adding a reader advisory list on this, or our library website has a spotlight on the side, so maybe adding those books to the spotlight book. So they can still see them, they're still highlighted, but it's more private. Oh, but make it like every other part of the website. So so don't necessarily have rainbows and sparkles and everything, although I like sparkles, but not everyone wants to be able to. If there are people that are uncomfortable about the sorts of things that they're looking at, you don't necessarily want them to be able to just look over your shoulder and see, oh, they must be looking at the gay page. So you want to make it look like everything else, and at the same time, you don't necessarily want to make people feel like an other. And sometimes if you particularly highlight something and make it completely different, instead of making them feel included, it sets them out as an other. We also, when we started talking about putting books on display and that kind of thing, we had to acknowledge the fact that it's a provocative topic. So we might need to think of ways to handle provocative subjects, or if someone is offended or just doesn't feel like it should be there, or even if a staff member maybe wants to do the display but is uncomfortable doing it, we need to understand what the guidelines are and what avenues and areas we have to go to if we need help doing these things, or if we have a patron or customer, student who is angry or is upset. We need to realize that this could be an issue, and we need to know how to deal with the issue. And even if it's not an issue, we just need to be aware that just have that sensitivity that it could come up for somebody. We talked about making diversity so pervasive that it becomes the norm. It's not really diversity anymore. Just if we put it everywhere, if we put it on displays like it's no big deal, like we would put Halloween or Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever, then eventually it might not be something that we need to have a whole conference about. When we started talking about specific real-world skills, we did talk about how it would be nice to have an expert or something like that, but it would also be nice if the people at the reference desk or who were handling questions knew enough about the topic, or just enough about the catalog in general to be able to search for that topic, so that we didn't necessarily have to pass people off to that next person, because sometimes it gets frustrated to just be passed around. Here we also talked about being able to handle complaints and guidelines and that sort of thing, and there was an interesting work note that was mentioned where we have a handbook here, we have guidelines here, and there are some people that actually keep that handbook and add to it their own personal stuff, not just random things that happen, but if they get a specific situation that isn't in the handbook, they add to it so that they can keep it for their personal reference, because no handbook can cover everything. So then we started brainstorming about ways to capture these things, and so we talked about wikis or blogs, or you can make it a Google document and give certain people rights to it, so that handbooks and guidelines become a living, breathing document. So when more specific kinds of issues do arise, if someone is offended or something else, there might be a guideline for how to deal with that. We talked about how you can't cover everything necessarily in a handbook, so you keep it sufficiently abstract, but at least let people know who to ask if they do have a general question or a concern or a problem. Then we talked about bias against job candidates if the people on the search committee feel that they've already got one. So I guess everyone knew what I meant when I said that. So people sometimes have these sort of mental quotas, or they discount people, or they might assume that because you are one thing, that's the one thing that you want to focus on. That's what your research wants to be about. You just want to talk about queer issues and nothing else, and that is not necessarily the case. Maybe you don't want to have anything to do with that at all whatsoever, but regardless, everyone has diversity of thought that they can bring to the area, so it doesn't matter. We need to, I don't want to say we need to look beyond someone's sexuality, because that almost makes it sound like it's somehow a bad thing and we need to see past it. So I don't want to say it that way, but we don't need to think that if there's already one of whatever, one black person, one lesbian, one whatever, that we don't need another one, because obviously we all think the same. Okay, so then the question was asked, if you do, and I heard this before, if you do get in there, if you are the one, are you expected to make an issue of it? Are you expected for your research interest to be in gay topics? Is that what we want to see? Is that what we're looking for? Or are we saying that you need to go into your workplace and make a change and be the person that everyone can come and talk to? And do we want to see that, or do we just want to see that that diversity of thought is recognized and appreciated, but you can be whoever you want to be regardless. It was pointed out that not only might you not want to be the token queer person in your job, but that might change. So when it changed for you. Yeah, so you have the right to change over time. Every person is a dynamic living creature, and so no one should pigeonhole you in any point in time in your career. And then we got this lovely quote that I quoted directly because I liked it. I don't think you get any disrespect for not being a professional queer. But then someone said, well, what about respect for the allies? Because when you do things like this, it is, it might have been asked of some of you, well, why are you going? You're not gay, or, you're not a minority in any way. So how do the allies feel like they're making a contribution or they're not looked down on? And how do they even find out about issues if it's insular, if it feels like only people in the community talk to other people in the community, and if you're outside, then there's no reason for you to even be there. So, and it was someone that she was saying she wasn't diverse, so we were, of course, making fun of her about that. But she was a white, straight, female, middle-class librarian, which is the norm here, but she was here. And she did get the question, well, why are you going to that? So how do you make things more inclusive and understand that this summit wasn't for LGBTIQI. It was for A's as well. So, and the question was asked, like how much diversity of people attend other things like Reforma or something else. We talked about maybe the A's can't understand the specific issue, but everyone has been marginalized in some way in their lives. So that is something that can be related to. We did talk about the asking your benefits person if there are partner benefits and whether or not you felt comfortable doing it, or how would you do that if you're not gay and you're not asking about your particular partner, then how would you couch that? So we discussed asking it directly of the HR person who really doesn't have much say in whether or not you get hired. If you're concerned that if you ask it, during an interview question, there might be some bias. We talked about how to couch it, so you could talk about how, other great people that might want to work there, and so you're asking for them. And we just talked about in general, there are people that are straight that live together, and they've been together for years and years and have kids and that kind of thing, so you can couch it in those terms too, if that would make you feel more comfortable. I think that's everything. Oh, but I didn't ask, was there anything that you guys thought I should add?
You're very articulate. You commented all in that song.
So I think a lot of what our group talked about was very similar to a lot of what the other groups had to say. I think what I'll add to that is we had the conversation about, there seems to be a very circular conversation about how to provide resources in libraries, whether to have a separate section, whether to incorporate it within other sections. So do you do the sticker idea, which we talked about, so that people can see, oh, that's a book by an LGBT author or regarding LGBT subjects? Do you create a display? Do you not do displays? And I think what came out of our conversation about that is that there's a need for individuals to recognize or to think about who are the people that I'm serving and what are their needs. So we had the conversation that LGBT people are not a homogenous group and that they're all in very different places in their development. So you have some of these students who are reticent to seek out materials, or going to be afraid to seek out materials and need to do so in a way that's more private. But then you also really have individuals who aren't in that place, whether you're in a school or in another type of library. You do have individuals who are in their place of their development where they're, I'm queer and I'm here and get used to it. And those individuals actually probably need to see visual displays. They need to see visual support for them. to know that that is an accepting place. Individuals in that stage of their development need that, so that there has to be some type of balance between providing for the needs of those who maybe are kind of reticent and afraid to seek out the materials, and also providing for the needs of those who really do need to see some type of visual support for who they are in this process of developing their identity, that there needs to be both. The other part of the conversation that our group had about that was that part of that in doing displays, et cetera, that you're actually informing others too. So it's not just about LGBT people. And I think a lot of our conversation has been about that. How do you provide resources for people who are LGBT? But there are people who aren't LGBTQ and I, and the A part to that, who also need these resources and need to be able to access them. So that's a big part of the conversation, is providing them in a way that those individuals can see them and have access to them. And so maybe it is a good thing to do that display because it's educating people, even if you get some resistance to that, which I thought was kind of an interesting conversation. And so part of that was, meeting LGBT people where they are. And so we did also have that conversation of how do you let people who are needing these resources know that librarians are a good person to come to, and the library is a safe space to come to. So we also had the conversation about the Safe Zone stickers, and I think that was an interesting observation you made about by saying this is a safe space, is that implying some other places aren't safe spaces. And we had that conversation, and my observation, I'll say as an LGBT person, is that when you go into a space, you kind of make the assumption that every place is unsafe. Really, to be really honest. Most people, you have to assess people when you come into a space. Is this person a safe person for me, or are they not? Is this a safe space, or is it not? And unfortunately, the way our systems and institutions are set up, the assumption many times is going to be that it's not safe until proven safe. And that's the approach, and that's the experience of LGBT people. So our group actually talked about that the sticker, et cetera, is a good thing to do, because that's kind of a very subtle way of letting an LGBT person know this is a place you can be. This is, and I'm someone you can talk to. And so maybe you're not having to have a really forward conversation with them about it, but that's a way they know that librarian is someone I can go to and ask questions about resources, so that maybe that's a good idea. And we had that conversation too about the public libraries, or not public, excuse me, the school library system. If you're in a high school, we had one person in our group who is in a high school. And so the conversation about how do you provide resources in that environment. And we had the conversation about how a sticker somewhere in that environment might be a good idea, considering the circumstances. And then we also had the conversation about education of librarians, and that the general sentiment was that there is a genuine need for more education regarding LGBT issues and curriculum. And not just how to be an ally, but what an ally can do. So actual action on the part of an ally. What can you actually do if you're going to help LGBT people in this environment? We also had some conversation about collections in general, about how to make the decision about what to provide and in what context to provide it. So we did have the conversation about creating online resources and the importance of that. Kind of similar to some of the other conversations that had been had, that it's important for people to be able to access that online, especially younger people, that's the way they're accessing things. So to have a really comprehensive online system of some sort for them to access those materials specifically, and that you're meeting their needs by making sure there is a place for them to go, that they can learn about what resources are there in this place that are for LGBT people, and that's an important part of the conversation. And I think that's most of what I have. Does someone from my group have something they'd like to add to that? I think I'll pass the mic on to you.
Okay, and the last, thank you.
Using the Safe Zone sticker idea for school librarians, I think we need to create something like it will get better sticker for school librarians, because that would send a different message to students. And I think someone needs to get on that bandwagon. That's my
Do it.
Just to piggyback on that, addition to that video stream, which has been, from what I've read, has been really influential and awesome for a lot of younger people, that anybody can contribute to that. And I wonder if there's anything in conjunction with that.
Yeah, I wonder, I don't know if he has any stickers or anything yet. That would be cool if he did. But Glisten is another resource, particularly for high school librarians that they can go to, because that organization focuses on the K through 12 system. So they may have stickers or something they provide. I'm not really positive, but their website is a great resource to talk about that environment.
What is it?
Glisten, Glesen is how it's spelled. Yeah.
Educational Network.
Yes.
Gay, lesbian, straight educational network. Is that
Gay,
right?
lesbian, educational. I don't know what the S is, but
Anyway, okay. We're I think a little bit shorter. We had one academic, one outside person, 2 students, 2 from Johnson & Wales, 2 from Elon, and 1 professor. And so when we started talking about the real world, we just went all over the place. Film seems to be a big issue. And the interesting comment from Johnson & Wales was that even though it's a business and vocational collection, and it really has a very narrow purpose in some ways, there is a general part to the collection, and the thought is that maybe we need to look into that, especially considering the number of GLBT people who become professional chefs. And so that was that. Let's see. Also, we had a lot of concern about the reaction of funders, and I think that's what holds a lot of us back from more GLBT-friendly thing, is there's always this, the management side of the equation jumps in on the bandwagon and says, oh yes, but we have the reality of the real world. Dream on, Jim. And but there has to be a way to justify selection, even in a. I was confessing to my group that I've been silently collecting LGBT titles out of the education budget for the past 22 years. It's very much the outcome in, if you've ever read the book Moo, where the assistant dean's secretary has been funneling excess funds from the football excess and putting it into the library collection. I think it's wonderful, perfectly justified. And then we have, there was a lot more talk about LGBT community surveys. Do we know who in our community, do we know that we have a gay community? And I think that's the time has come when maybe that's another idea you can get on the board, that it's okay to ask people if they're gay now. I mean, even the census has changed, so maybe that's time. Also, what else? The question came up in the real world, does the fact that your boss is or is not gay, black, Latino, Chinese, anything, make a difference in the environment that you come into? And of course, the bottom line on that is we all need training in Socratic dialogue, and we need training in non-binary thinking so that, gray can become a fashion statement again. Because people are very good at black and white either or thinking, but they're not so good at both and. And Les Ashheim at Chapel Hill was a master at this, and he used to teach us how to ask people questions that would, in a gentle way, lead them or teach them how to think in a way that was not binary and good and bad and all of that stuff. Also, let me see. I think most of these we've been done. One question came up, not making assumptions was a big theme in our group, talking about skills, about people, whether they're gay, straight, effeminate male, butch, female, all of the categories. You can't make assumptions based on anything. And when you do, and when you get tired, it's very important to forgive yourself. And that's what came out of our group, forgive yourself, underlined 3 times with exclamation points. As far as research, who's in power? That was the question that came up in our group. They do such research in retail all the time. Retailers are very familiar with who their public is. They know what percentage of every dollar comes from the GLBT community. So why don't the non-profit institutions know that same information? It's a very interesting question. We talked about the importance of developing skills. This kind of crosses over, I'm jumping. Of getting ourselves into situations that were uncomfortable for us, because those are learning experiences. And so if we don't normally go to biker clubs, I won't finish that. But someone did mention cuddling clubs, which they have in New York. You get random strangers to cuddle, and we decided that that might not work for everybody. But it might be okay to watch other people cuddle. Let's see. We also wondered why there were not more links on web pages. You know, everybody talks about resources. We probably have the best resource in the world. Of course, here at UNCG, Stacy's done a wonderful job of an LGBTQ resource guide for Safe Zone. But we also have the ALA LGBT Roundtable, which has developed the first gay bibliography of resources. And Jeanette Foster, who was the first librarian at Kinsey Institute and was a graduate of 1934 at Emory University, also did the first research for lesbian resources. So, and she actually came to a few conferences before she died. She's no longer with us. One more idea about curriculum. We had the same discussion you all did about having one mandatory class or spreading it out in the curriculum. Julie, you got a lot of good press for your diversity course, because Julie actually makes people go to a Buddhist temple, and we had a lot of fun with her. And so also, the question to ask about all diversity programs is what constitutes diversity and who is left out of it. So, you know, people get, okay, I've got to come get beat up as a white person today because we're doing African American diversity. No, you're diverse too, because you have, you're one of those blue-eyed blonde people from a Nordic country. You represent a point of view too. And so we talked about that, taking a kind of unconventional, maybe controversial point of view to diversity. When I came to UNCG 22 years ago, diversity meant one thing. It meant African American issues. And that's normal because we're in the South. But since then, we've gone all over the map, and in our department, I can tell you that we really have a diverse department now. We've got one person of Turkish descent, we've got 2 Chinese people, we have 3 mothers, and we have we have 2 single people, one of whom is gay, and it's kind of exciting group we live in. We have somebody who belongs to Junior League. I mean, we do. We have one member who belongs to Junior League. So those are some ways to think about diversity that don't get discussed in most programs, and we hope that helps. Yes?
One thing. Something our group talked about, which I forgot to mention, which kind of you hit on it a little bit, but is engaging LGBT people in their spaces. So getting out from behind the reference desk, and if you're in a public school, going to, if there's a gay straight alliance, like going as the librarian to that group and introducing yourself and telling them who you are and the resources you provide. Or if you're a librarian in a university setting, going to the student pride organization and telling them about the library. And I can tell you, they'd be happy to have you come and inform them, and they would really see that as a great sign that that is a safe place for them to go and that there are resources there. So, if you're thinking about how to access and how to make it a place that is accessible, sometimes doing outreach in that form and having that one-on-one contact might be the most effective way.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank everybody for taking notes and all the participation, all of you. You can't leave yet. Would you all like to, yeah, you all can resume. And we have one little bit of business to clear up before we leave today. One is to remind you, if you haven't already, to fill out your evaluation sheets. What else, Clara? Okay, you'll do that later. I'll do this first. Okay. It's come time for me to assume my role as Stacy found some pair 11 2-inch heels for me, but we don't have them right yet. But I will put on the red feather boa. I've got some presentations to make. First, as you hear your name called, in the award for Best Actress, Nancy. Nancy, where's Nancy? Yes, you have to come up. I'll throw it to you. It's not breakable. It's not expensive. It's just a little something. Aww. Mwah. Mimi. Mimi. These are all of the people that made today possible, and they work right outside my door. I get to hear them kvetching all night long. Yes, it's wonderful. Amanda. Hey, Amanda. She's not here? She had to go, okay. Huh?
She's putting stuff on the web already.
Oh, yeah, that's her. Let's see. Now, who would this be? Whose name? Huh?
There's Amanda.
Where's Amanda? There she is. This is wonderful. Such dignity. Such professional poise. Come on, walk across for you, darling. Thank you so much. That's the fastest keyboard in the West. Let's see. Whose name begins with a D? Okay, whoever they aren't here. Oh, this must be Stacy. Oh, Stacy, you have to open this now. This is very good. I know you're streaming, you're doing something important. Yes, it is a library rental, and you really need to look at this right now. It's going to get you to your car tonight. And see if you can play it now.
What would you do with the brain if you had one?
There we go. See, we're serious. Is Mr. Bill here? Mr. Bill? No, he's not here. Okay, well, too bad. All right. And let's see, who would this be? Who on the planning committee? I don't even remember who this is for anymore. I know this is for Nora. And who would that be on the planning committee?
There's no one with D in the planning committee.
I know. That's very strange. What about C? That must be Cindy. Where's Cindy? She's gone. She's on her way to, well, there's always tomorrow. Okay. There's always tomorrow. That'll give us something. Now, I've got one other thing to do. For each member of the panelists, I am presenting you with this lovely bag. This is a gift from Clara. And you can, when you come up to get your formal awards, you can get your little UNCG LIS bag. These are priceless. That's all I use anymore. I must have 50 briefcases, but Sorry about that. Thank you, Letitia. And I have to do this right. I can't bend anymore. I'm old, but let's get going. God, it's so painful. Sorry about the music. Ah, there we go. Mario, thank you so much for coming. Let's see if I can charge it. Thank you.
I actually, Tara mentioned one on her back. I actually got a purse that has her iPad in it.
Oh, okay. Polly. Miss Polly. Miss Polly.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Professor
darling.
Carmichael. How
Good
thoughtful.
Of course. Trey. There we go.
Thank you.
I cannot curtsy anymore. Nathan.
Oh, I'm over here. Oh, you need to curtsy for me. Thank you.
Ouch.
Don't hurt yourself.
Don't forget your bag.
Oh.
Now, I want to say one personal thing. I've been waiting 22 years for this. Thank you, Clara. You made it possible. Thank all of you.
Okay, Jim, just stay there for a sec.
It's Christmas.
Okay, I don't have the bow on, but I can do this too.
Would you like the bow? I crown you. Looks better on you. Thank you.
Thank you so much to everyone. Did you want to add a few more words before we do a wrap up? Okay, great. Okay, before we wrap up with thank yous and so forth, I know we had mentioned evaluation forms, so if you could fill those out, that would be wonderful because we really want to hear from you. And also you get that wonderful UNCG Libraries keychain with a whistle. So I think you want to take one of those home. And for those of you who did a poster presentation and you still have to pick it up, then that can be found in through that doorway back over on the left back side over there. So if you can't find it, we'll help you locate it. So what I wanted to do is just close up by saying thank you to all of you. Thank you to all of you who were here at the university physically and those of you who were able to join us virtually. If it wasn't for you, this dialogue wouldn't be possible. Dialogue begins the discussion. It allows us to get to know each other, and that difference becomes one that we can embrace, as well as we can find connections with each other. So I don't want us to end here, and to be able to continue the discussion, we are going to subscribe you to our LIS News L list, and so we can stay connected, and we'll continue to find other ways to do so. And we also welcome you to come back next year as we continue to focus on issues that relate to information, diversity, engagement, access, and libraries. And in terms of librarians who are out there and other information professionals, our students really would like to learn from you. They would like to be able to be guided by you, to be supported by you. They really want to learn from your knowledge and experience. So please sign up with us if you can be a mentor, if you can be a practicum site, or offer other ways that you can assist and support our students, especially in these difficult economic times. We want to be able to allow them to transition into a wonderful professional career. And you don't have to wait until the next Ideal Summit, to actually come back and gather together and have a lot of fun and discuss. Because the ACE scholars, that is the academic and cultural enrichment scholars who are in our program, they are organizing a professional LIS conference for students. So they're going to be hosting a conference for MLIS students coming up in the spring. And they've already received a bit of support for this from Mario Asensio. He has contributed his honorarium towards the support of this conference. And so I conclude again by saying thank you, Doje, muchas gracias, danke schön, merci beaucoup. So we began in dialogue. We were able to identify some resources, especially check out the resources that Stacy has made available through the one particular web page on LGBTQI issues. And you can find all those resources plus the other books that we've mentioned during this summit through the Ideals website. And also, lastly, ACT. You know that we have each other. If you can't speak out on your own, we can speak in unison. So you can find one another, we can find each other. The names of the participants, they are in your packet. So if you don't know each other, you know that we're here for you. Also the department, all of the faculty and the students, whatever idea you have to make change, to make the world a more equitable one, especially by providing information resources. That's what we're about. So thank you again, and let's continue our discussion online or come and visit us. Thank you.
You're awesome.
Oh, you're welcome. You are too. All right.
That's one.
Hey, it's not easy for you
That
to
looks
stay
so
on.
good